Hello everyone, this is Darkfire Slide, back with another episode of Europa Universalis 4, and our introductory tutorial campaign for the game, and Castile. I guess you could consider this a Castile walkthrough, but we'll get to that later, because right now we're introducing basic game concepts still. So we just covered technology, but not like the bonuses it gives. We'll do that as we do it. I'm just kind of covering everything that we need to know before we actually get the game started. Next comes ideas, and basically how ideas work is, in addition to technology that you can research, you also can spend your monarch points on what are called ideas. And ideas are abilities that give you basically like massive passive bonuses, if you will, which is kind of a lot of what the technology does in this game in general. You know, just passive bonuses over time that eventually accrue and become extremely powerful. And that's kind of how grand strategy works in general, especially in this game. You know, think of everything in terms of years and hundreds of years rather than in, you know, the short term. In most cases, I would say. Anyway, how ideas work is when we unlock the ability to get ideas at Administrative Tech 4, we unlock our first idea group. We go to this, we pick that, and then we look at each of these lists. Now, each of these, it shows you what's in each list and what you get. So if we look here at innovative ideas, we have prestige decay, minus 1%, which means that our prestige is going to decay less every year, which is pretty good because it provides long-term bonuses. This ability is going to give us minus 25% cost to recruiting new mercenaries. This ability is going to make technology cost minus 5%. So all technology types minus 5%. It's really useful. This ability makes our Army and Navy tradition decay by 2% less every year. This ability reduces inflation by 10%. This reduces war exhaustion every month, which is good. Optimism. And this ability is going to give us a bonus leader without upkeep every month. And then, in addition to all of these abilities that we can unlock, when we have unlocked all of them, we unlock this as well. Advisor costs minus 25%. So those advisors we hired are going to cost 25% less, which is pretty huge. And when we unlock one of these idea groups, we are going to... It costs 400 monarch points of the type of power that the group belongs to. So innovative ideas, the one we just covered, are going to cost administrative points. Diplomatic ideas from the diplomatic ideas group is going to cost diplomatic points. So it's going to cost 400 points for each of these bonuses. Until finally you get the seventh ability, and you unlock the final benefit. And then military ideas are going to cost military points. And you want to balance the three, because you have three different types. If you put all of your ideas in one group, it has a dual kind of penalty in a way, because not only is it sucking away all the points of that type, but as well, if we mouse over here, this is going to be overwhelming, we get this huge list of basically synergies. And what it does, for example, if we look at this first one here, you unlock policies with ideas. And how these work is, once you have fully unlocked an entire group, so we have fully unlocked innovative ideas, and we would say we want to get the ability benign neglect from exploration ideas, which gives us global trade power plus 10% and settler chance plus 5%. We would need to fully research innovative ideas and exploration ideas to get that ability, which we will see under here in this tab, the missions and decisions. Once we have fully unlocked both those trees, we will gain the ability to add a policy. And that bonus that we just talked about, the bonus to global trade power and settler chance from innovative and exploration ideas, is going to give us the ability to unlock that policy, and it's either going to cost us either administrative or diplomatic points. One of either, I don't know which, off the top of my head, to upkeep that ability every month. So policies are really this late game concept that we will be able to use to our advantage for the most part. As well, in addition to everything we just covered, for every 3 ideas you unlock Not idea groups, but actual ideas. So if we got 3 of these, patron of the arts, pragmatism, scientific revolution, we would also unlock this first thing here. We've kind of got a progress bar. We would unlock the Reconquista, which would give us a discipline bonus of 5%, which is going to improve our troops. So it's important to think about when you're getting ideas, when you're putting points into ideas, you're not just getting the benefits from those ideas, but you're also getting benefits for the actual abilities that you're, for these abilities here. As well, every team gets these for free. So just for being Spain, our Spanish ideas and Spanish traditions are going to give us an additional missionary to convert provinces with, and increase our morale by 15%, which is super good, and our global settler increase will increase by plus 25, which is pretty good. After we have unlocked all of the Spanish ideas, so all of these, basically. All right. That being said, we've already covered the missions tab. Next is stability and expansion. When we go to war, we'll be looking at this a lot, war exhaustion. This is how upset your people are at the fact that you're fighting a war and people are dying. Here we can see stability. And 0, we always want to have at least 0 at all times, because otherwise bad things happen to our country. And here you can see we can actually boost our stability. We can raise it past what it is. Now, because we don't have any potential revolts on our hand, and because we, basically because of that, we don't really need to worry about stability that much. Now, in a kingdom, every time your king dies, you will lose stability. So whenever your king dies, you have to count on spending about 100 administrative points to boost stability back up again. I don't know why that's there necessarily. I guess people get upset when a king dies. But, yeah. Anyway, here we can see our colonial range, our global settlers, and our administrative efficiency. Administrative efficiency is a topic I would definitely check the wiki on if you wish to understand it more. It's another one of those green is good things. But I think it affects overextension, which is when you own too many provinces that you don't have as part of your quote-unquote core country. When we get into dangerous situations later, when we start getting war exhaustion, this tab here, Stability and Expansion, is going to list every single group of rebels in our country, which provinces are upset, and what we can do to kind of stop the rebellion, or even what to do if we want to give in to their demands. Next on the list, we have religion. And it's going to tell you what religion you are, what bonuses that religion gives, and then, so here we can see we have tolerance of the true faith +1, tolerance of heretics -1. So as Catholics, we really like Catholics, but we really don't like Orthodox and Protestants, which is going to be an issue during the Protestant Reformation, as you might imagine. And then there's another stat entirely called tolerance of heathens. Now, what does this do? It means that in provinces where Catholicism is present, because we have 5 tolerance of the true faith, it will lower unrest in those provinces by 5, which is really, really big. But in provinces where we don't have Catholicism, we're basically going to take a -2 penalty to our unrest, which is going to make rebels pop up faster. Because we're Catholic, we also have a neat little option here to deal with the papacy. And it's going to tell us, everything we need to know. Basically what you need to know about the papacy is you have what's called papal influence that you get for doing certain events and, doing things like declaring war on Muslims. So it's important to have papal influence if you're Catholic, because you can spend the points to possibly become the papal controller, do things like excommunicate people and call for crusades. But you also have a lot of different options up here. Like, for example, if we have 100 papal influence, which is the max, we can spend all of those points, like they're a resource, and gain 73 ducats. So that's something we want to think about every time we get an event that may raise or lower our papal influence. Is because of all these different abilities that we can unlock here. That being said, going back to our religion tab, once Protestantism and Reformed Catholicism come into existence, we will have the option to change religions, which is going to have a bunch of different effects. A lot of nations, especially Muslim nations, and I think Hindu as well, cannot manually change their religions. So just something to bear in mind when you're going about things. Next is our military tab, and this isn't going to be quite so relevant to us yet. But here you can look at how much it costs to build a regiment, if they have any bonuses to combat ability, and then everyone has two stats to worry about when it comes to fighting for your troops. You have what's called fire, and you have what's called shock. And fire represents when your troops are shooting guns and things of that nature, and and shock represents when troops are actually fighting and are up close and personal, things like bayonet charges and cavalry charges. Early on in the game, fire is going to be really low, and that's going to be important when we think about generals and military leaders, as they're called. It has the same stats listed for boats, and boats have three stats as well. Well, it doesn't list the third stat here, but basically what you need to worry about on boats is the cannons and the actual size of the hull, which is basically going to affect their hit points. So as we can see here, the hull size of a cog, which is our transport ship, is going to have 12, but it only has 4 cannons. But if we look at the galley here, it's going to have 8 hull size and 12 cannons, so it's going to be a more effective combatant. And that's to be expected because, you know, a transport is just a transport. It's not supposed to fight, necessarily. It only has the bare minimum needed, really, to, like, defend itself. And then next we have all these different modifiers down here that I'll briefly touch on. Army tradition affects everything military. It's going to raise your manpower, and I believe every 25 points raises your chance to get a better general. So if you have 50 army tradition and you recruit a general, which costs you 50 military power, if your army tradition is at least 50, you're going to have a better chance of getting a good general than you are versus, you know, if you had 25 or currently are 13 army tradition. And army tradition is a stat that's difficult to build up. You basically need to constantly be at war if you want to keep it up. Make sure that you don't lose too many troops in wars so as to, you know, keep it raised. And naval tradition basically works the same way. It's also going to tell you what your base land morale is, so when your troops have full morale, how much they have. And then as well your force limit for Army and Navy. And what your force limit is how many regiments you can control before it becomes costly, like, you know, exceptionally costly to start to support those regiments. Next we have military tactics. What military tactics does is it reduces the amount of casualties and morale damage that you suffer in battle. And there's discipline, which basically does the opposite. It raises the amount of damage you do and raises the amount of morale damage you do to enemies. But discipline also affects tactics. So, just something to think about. Defensiveness is how difficult it's going to be to besiege our provinces, and siege ability is the opposite, how long it's going to take us to besiege provinces. And now we can talk about leaders. Basically, the combat in Europa Universalis 4 uses a dice roll system. And our leaders' stats are going to add a bonus to our attack of a certain kind, depending on the stats they have. Land leaders have 4 stats. They have fire, shock, maneuver, and siege. Only fire and shock are used in the actual combat, but it's important to have maneuver because if you have a higher maneuver than your enemy, it's going to help you to negate penalties like crossing rivers and fighting in forests and mountains and other defensible locations. And also siege ability is an important commander ability to have because it's going to increase the speed at which you besiege provinces. So our current leader here, who is not leading an army, because we are able to fire him if we wish, has 2 fire, 2 shock, 3 maneuver, and 0 siege. So what that means is, during the fire phase of combat, we have a +2 added to our fire roll. And same thing goes for the shock phase. And basically, combats are 50% fire, 50% shock. So, you know, even if you have a bunch of cannons, for example, if you don't have any units with good shock, you know, during that phase of the combat, you're not going to be useful. So that's why it's useful. That's why you want to, you know, round out your armies as a general strategy. Now, the important thing about general stats is that they're always comparative. So if we went up against a theoretical general who had a 3 in fire and a 1 in shock, what would happen is during the fire phase of the combat, we would get a the enemy general would get a +1 to the fire phase on his dice roll, which is going to affect how much damage is dealt to us. And then during the shock phase, since his general only has a 1 in shock, we're going to have the advantage, and we're going to have 1 higher on our shock dice roll. And then because we have 3 maneuver, say we're crossing a river into a plains terrain, which doesn't give any defensive bonuses. Generally speaking, a river is a -1 to your dice roll. But say the enemy, we're fighting an enemy whose general only has a maneuver of 1 versus our maneuver of 3. Because our maneuver score is 2 higher than his, we're able to circumvent the river and not take any penalties for it. Yeah, that basically sums up some of how the combat works. It's really complicated. Basically what you need to know about combat in general is always try to fight in favorable terrain and make sure that you have a better leader and more troops. And more better troops like cavalry and cannons. But you don't want to have too much cavalry because you take penalties for that. So just a thought. The last tab on our government page, or nation list, is subjects. And subjects are going to be things like vassals, basically. Vassals and eventually colonies. But we don't have any of those right now, so we're not going to talk about it. Okay, so we've spent almost an hour talking about the interface. But thankfully, that's all that we really need to do. So that being said, let's talk about what we want to do in our campaign. So, we just sent that diplomat to Portugal. So when we unpause the game and wait 3 days, he's going to come back, we're going to sign the alliance, and we're going to complete our mission. After that, what we want to do is, since we have this truce with Granada until 1448, so another 4 years, we're going to have to wait until then to take those provinces back. And this is a good time to talk about the idea of cores and what's called a casus belli. So, basically, what makes EU4 different from a lot of games, and Paradox does this in general, really, it does a good job of it. In a game like Civilization, you're able to basically declare war on people for no reason. You can just say, hey, I don't like you, I'm going to declare war on you and take your stuff. In this game, you have to have a valid reason to attack people, a casus belli or cause of war. If we right-click on Granada and we look at our diplomacy options and we click on Declare War, we could see all of the different effects that we're going to see. But most importantly, we're going to see that we have a casus belli. We have the Reconquest casus belli against Granada, because they hold provinces that we consider to be part of our quote-unquote core nation. Now, what does that mean? When you take provinces, and we'll get to see this in an actual war, basically a cored province is going to be considered part of your country. For even if a core gets taken from you, you have a permanent claim on that country and a casus belli against anyone who takes it for around, I think, 200 years is how much it takes to get rid of a core, if that tells you anything. So it's really important to have those. And because if we open our diplomatic map mode here, we can see that these green lines are here. And what these mean is that we have a core on all of these provinces. There's another type. They're going to be yellow lines, and that's called a claim. Now, a claim is different from a core in that we haven't actually made that place a part of our nation. We just simply say that we rightfully own this territory, even though we haven't owned it before and it hasn't been part of our nation before. Now, you may be wondering, how do you expand when you don't have any claims? For example, if we look here, and if we declare war on them, on Aragon with no casus belli, we take a -2 to our stability, which is really bad. Remember, -3 is the limit. And we're also going to suffer what's called aggressive expansion, which basically makes everyone not like us. Because, oh, you're aggressive, you're a conqueror, things of that nature. And if you get your aggressive expansion too high, nations may form what's called a coalition against you. So, how do we change our situation? Because we need these 3 provinces if we want to militarily form Spain. Or if we want to diplomatically form Spain, then we would have to, of course, vassalize Aragon, usually through war. Because to vassalize them would be pretty difficult. But anyway, this is one of the most important things that I didn't know when I started playing EU4. And what you want to look at is this right here under covert actions. You can do what's called fabricating a claim. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you the ability to pick a neighboring province, and what it will do is when it'll send a diplomat of yours over to the country, and it takes about a year unless you have a bonus. And what it will do is at the end of it, it will give you a casus belli against them because you have a claim on that province. And we'll get more into claims when we actually go to war with Aragon, since that's our plan. But for the time being, what we're going to do is we're going to fabricate a claim on the province of Aragon itself. Now, unlike other games, if you get discovered, that doesn't give them a casus belli back, but it does let them know, hey, they're forming claims on your country, you might want to get ready. Which is really important if you're playing a smaller nation. So we're going to go ahead and fabricate that claim. And here in our outliner, we can see we have a progress bar. So no time has passed, we're at 0%. And basically this is going to be the end of the discussion. And next time we are going to get into the actual gameplay of Europa Universalis 4. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you on the next one. And make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more.